Hello everyone, let's take a look at the markets, and today it's going to be a little bit of a spicy video. You can already see I have some tweets from Tony the Bull, and first of all I have to say I have nothing personally against him. It's just one example that I'm going to use because I was following him back then and he got many people wrecked. He has been selling the 120k target for months, right? This is one of those kind of big accounts that new players just follow, and they believe because they publish many different charts that people don't understand, so they instantly believe that he knows what he's saying and what's next, and people get fucking wrecked. That's it. I mean, I'm not saying trust me because I know what I'm doing. I don't really care. After all, I don't have any newsletter to sell, any paid group or something like that. I'm just trying to help people avoid getting wrecked as I have for 4 years, right? It's been a long journey and my first cycle was really tough. I back held like a 90 something plus % drop from altcoins because 250k by December 2021, right? Yes. So I remember him calling for this 120k next week, like January, right? Everybody was trying to time the top. It was going to be mid-January, perhaps late January, followed by the biggest alt season ever, right? I guess people just didn't want to see the weakness that was building, right? We have mentioned that here several times, and you can find my posts on Twitter. Look, I'm mostly invested in altcoins as well, so why wouldn't I want to believe that the huge alt season was next, right? So first of all, let's start with the December call, right? Bollinger Bands, expanding, price action is behaving exactly like late 2023. This was the post, right? Bollinger Bands, behaving exactly like late 2023. This is the problem when you pick up fractals, right? You can pick whatever the fuck you want. That's it. You can pick the fractal you want. You can make it look great. You can make it look like it's going to happen exactly again, but that's cherry picking, right? For example, I mentioned back in late February that Bollinger Bands were not very tight on the weekly, right? They were here, and it eventually broke to the upside, which we could have some hint when price started climbing up. But I said on the daily, they're very, very tight. In fact, we could say they were as tight as here and also as here, which is the Bollinger Bands he was mentioning, right? But just based on data, it could go down, it could go up. So which way? Big move is coming. Which way? Right? I posted it here. Which way? We didn't know. Well, the same day the move started, that was just a coincidence, and we have almost a 20% drop. Why couldn't I just said the same way he did that? Okay, it looks as compressed as late 2023, and then we had a huge move up. Why would I intentionally ignore this one, which is as tight as this one, right? Why? Just because I want to engage farmer engagement, right? Because we all want price to go up. And the second instance was, which in my opinion was even worse, because calling for 120k when we are around, I think it was around 100. It's not that a big stretch. But here again, Bitcoin 2-day Bollinger Band, tightest as in October. Well, late 2023 again, the same freaking data point, right? Right before breaking out into a 75% rally. When was this posted? I mean, I couldn't make this up, right? Freaking top. So you are obviously ignoring weakness, right? RSI, this is the daily. I don't really trust the daily. I just use it as a confirmation for a higher time frame like the weekly, right? But here in December, there was weakness building. We don't know when it was going to stop, right? But at the moment he posted it, there was enough weakness going on. Same in March, the top, right? Vertical accumulation, they said here in late 2023, and there was a bearish divergence building. We didn't know when it would stop, right? And it stopped when the ETF launched. It was the cycle top. Do you remember that? Yes, cycle top. At the same time, we could argue that we built a bullish divergence, and I could say, okay, this bullish divergence brought this move. And again, you post this when the daily RSI is quite overheated. Does it mean it has to completely roll over? I mean, in fact, here price kept going up while building a divergence. Sure, if you sold here, you were fucked because this price wasn't ever reached again. That's why I prefer, and I only trade weekly cycles and the whole cycles itself. But there were signs. There were signs here. Isn't this? Doesn't it look like distribution? You can't break the top. You have several swings, right? You create a range, but strength is going away, right? Strength is going away. What if we switch? Let me just remove all this. What if we switch to the weekly? Okay, I didn't want to do that. I'm just going to remove the lines. I want to keep the tweets for reference, right? So what if we switch to the weekly? Okay, this is even worse, right? Right at the top. Weekly RSI 89. I mean, if I'm just applying constantly these indicators because that's my strategy, and I shouldn't be changing my strategy just when it stops working and I look for another one that might fit my bias to keep pushing my trying to push the price and my own narrative. No, I have to apply my strategy, right? And this is 89 RSI on the weekly. This is cycle top material. I mean, you could argue that, but the monthly wasn't showing that yet. That's why I keep going to the highest time frame to decide if, or at least try to guess if the cycle is over. This is just a weekly cycle. Weekly cycle could take months, the same way the daily cycle could take weeks to recover, right? So, wasn't this enough, right? And you posted here. He posted it here. And you already have this. And you just cherry pick Bollinger Bands from October, and you say, we could see another 75% because that's what happened there. Yikes. So, from October to, I don't know when, perhaps midsummer, you expect such a move with oscillators never resetting. Yes, that's probably it. You could say, okay, I'm not going to be unfair. I'm going to take his tweets. And he said, let me just look for it. Tony, when you said January 20, 2025 for the top, you're talking BTC. It was BTC, but I expect outs to take up to 6 weeks beyond that. Based on what? I see no chart. I guess it's just trust me, bro. So, all right. Let's see what the... This is the last post. Let's see what Total 2 did back then after his alts will take from here. All right. Yeah, they definitely had a massive alt season. Imagine you buying here because he said that, right? This is the week he said that. And you buy here. I'm gonna use one of my biggest investment, which is Ondo. What was Ondo doing back then? Let's switch to the daily, and we have very overheated levels December 4. Let's say, okay, this is just a daily. It can cool off, and just the weekly could keep going up. And then you print a various divergence. Is this scenario also losing the RSI after the big trend started here while recapturing it, right? You have a 2.5x move, start losing this, and you think it's going to keep going up. And now this is the moment he says it's going to start going up for 6 weeks, right? It's been almost 4 months. And in this case, Ondo has gone down like 70%. What an alt season, right? Okay, you can move to that's why, look, I took a look back then at the weekly and I said, okay, look, still not very like euphoric RSI levels, right? But there was weakness on the daily. We also had reached pretty much the same RSI like in 2024 top. Those are 2 signs. And then I also used the USDT chart that I have shared several times, showing signs of a local bottom, and also the funding rate map, right? Excuse me. This December 9th, okay, on the weekly. And then the funding rate map from started like November, this is the big run, and early December, people started to ape insanely. This was the Trump mania. Was another sign if you want to take those memes runs as a sign. It was pushing hard while RSI was losing strength. So this was clearly the last push made with futures, right? With perpetual contracts, right? So open interest, it was very, very high. That was another sign. BTC weakness, altcoin weakness, RSI oscillators overheated, USDT finding a potential bottom, and funding rate map overheated. Is that not enough to at least de-risk something? I would say it is, but what do I know after all? So now let's take a look at the current situation. I want to mention why we're going back to the basic levels that we left behind after this drop on the compression area that ended breaking to the downside, right? So in terms of trend lines, this is the trend line that BTC still has to break, right? I don't really need this right now. And in terms of horizontal levels, we can see that the previous all-time high was pretty much over, front run here. We'll see if the bottom is seen. We had a huge run yesterday. I said that 82.5 is the first target, 84 is the next one, which is way more important than 82.5, but this is like a lower time frame. Then we have the boss at 88k, around 88k, and 90k, which is recovering these higher time frame support. In fact, I posted this back in mid-February, right? Like bears see this weekly cycle chart and say this is a distribution like in 2021, and it certainly looks very similar, right? But the monthly chart tells a different story. Back then, And that's why I said the top isn't in yet. If support holds, which is 90k, we're good. This was the chart back then. We had various diversions, several actually. This looked like a distribution. Same here, lost the RSI. Looks like distribution. 97k. Right? This was the RSI and why I believe the top wasn't in. This is just based on my assumption that cycles die in euphoria. This is just my bet. I will keep adapting in the future, but for now, I won't call a top amid fear and a constant wall of worry. And that's just me. But we can't deny this. And people just said, no, man, this is just cooling off. Getting ready for the next leg. I guess people just expect that BTC just runs, stops. There is no correction. Ever. Right? Here, I guess they say the same. Right? This wasn't just losing strength after a big run. This was just a correction. But cooling off, really? Because this 8 months were looking terrible for many people, right? Too long, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. But people said, okay, seasonality, Q4. So for now, let's try to recapture these levels one by one, okay? This little drop today, I'm not going to pay attention to volatility today. We have the CPI, we had a huge move yesterday. So traders, I assume they are just selling every bounce because the trend is still bearish, right? Lower highs, lower lows, and now we have a lower low, right? But we go back to the chop area here. We could argue the situation looks kind of similar. This top, which was the ETF launch, was very, just a very short space, let's say, right? It was front run here again with this big drop. Could be the same here. And again, this was not the structure of a bullish uptrend, right? But at some point, we printed a a higher low, and a slightly higher high, and again, higher low, and the trend was starting to reverse, right? So what do we need now? Something like, let's say we hold 80k, something like that. We start recovering this. After all, the good thing about this is the trend line is getting close to being retested again, especially if we recapture 84. Perhaps we do something like this, and perhaps later in the week for the weekly close, that would be huge, by the way, we recapture or retest this and we finally break, right? This was the 88 week that couldn't break it, right? So perhaps we do that now. Again, people are calling tops now because the SPX looks like it has stopped, right? Sorry, I'm gonna remove all this. Compare with the SPX, it seems it has stopped, right? But why is this negative for BTC? And this is all just subjective. Why couldn't we say that BTC was going down while stocks were ripping? Why wasn't that a sign? Why couldn't I say, okay, the top of BTC is clearly in, man? SPX keeps running. BTC is making lower highs and lower lows. It's over, man. It's freaking over. And then we see this, and the narrative is, oh no, BTC is just catching up. Okay, so you have all the explanations after the fact. Well, good luck with that. So all I'm doing for now is paying attention to the weekly, and I have to apply, if I want to be serious, right? And I want a strategy that might work, I have to apply the same strategy constantly. I cannot change and cherry pick Bollinger Bands and or pick a fractal that I want it to happen again, right? and say this is what's going to happen because actually that's what I want. No, I keep playing the 50 weekly EMA, right? It's going to be the same indicators, the same structure all over again. I'm going to be constantly testing it and checking it until it breaks. So here in 2023, it looked even worse, right? Because we lost it and it was rejected several weeks, right? But RSI wasn't making a low, and let me just do this. Okay, for some reason I'm not doing this correctly. Something is not working here. Anyway, this bottom, right? This, I think there is something blocking this, but anyway, this bottom, right, wasn't lost. We established a new bottom above this top, so this resistance became support here and here. So even though it was below, it was a high low. And again here, we came back with a whole candle to retest it, and the RSI was still alive. Same here, RSI fake out for now, back above this trend line, which hasn't been lost since the bull run started, right? And pretty much the same in the 2021 correction as we have already mentioned. So until this breaks, why should I turn bearish? I have no reason for that. And all these retests always looks scary because they happen like at the last line, right? This is a make it or break it kind of move. So why would I be bearish for that? I still have no reason. And if we take a look at the SPX, look, I still have the squirrel lines from the last video. And I think they're going to be useful because I mentioned that what if we run and get rejected here and then roll over, which it seems we are very close to that now, right? And I also mentioned that there was a few gaps that could be closed. And with this move, they have certainly been. And we also mentioned the RSI levels, right? Both on the weekly and the daily. We said we were getting to pretty much even beyond the bear market bottom and pretty much COVID levels. I mean, if you play oversold levels, what if we had the exact opposite? What if we said the stock market is here? We could argue that it's around the top in 2018, above this. We could say this is way overheated, right? Why not the same round here with the oversold conditions? I think it's pretty much the same. And if we move to the daily, we also discussed that this was flashing very oversold levels that we had only seen, I think it was back in the bear market, right? And COVID. So another good area to bounce. As we can see, we mentioned these two gaps, the first one and the second one. The first one has already been closed, right? And the second one we would only need today. Look, 130% after we had a monstrous rally yesterday. We have CPI today. If it comes in line or within expectations, why shouldn't this move keep going? After all, I mean, this is still very choppy. The RSI on the daily has crossed bullishly. The last time it did, we had some another push, in this case 4.6. Why not, right? But the thing is, I would like to see give me a second. I would like to see the stock markets attack the moving average again, right? And reclaim it. We can see it was rejected here, and that was a very contrary sign compared to this one, to these ones. So I wanted to see it reclaimed before taking anything seriously or saying that we are back, right? But again, it looks like same as BTC, the previous top has been slightly front run. And that's why I believe that's why I posted these levels. I think they are not random levels. The same thing happened with BTC, and I think they are important. And the oscillators are completely reset. Look at the weekly, almost touched it. Back here, the same thing. So the reset might be in the oscillators are ready for another push. They're very oversold, even the weekly, right? Anything on the monthly, you can see stock RSI is almost fully reset, which it took like from July 2021 to July 2022, pretty much a whole year to reset back then. And here it happened from October to April, half the time, pretty much. And for now, we have a huge wick on the monthly. Huge wick. This could design a reversal. We'll see, but it's looking good. I mean, the month is still very early, so this is not very relevant yet. But it is that it has bounced from these levels. We could say that it was these levels because just it was a coincidence with the pause announcement yesterday. But the latest retaliation between US and China, the extra percentage on the tariffs, didn't affect the markets in the last few days. So perhaps that was very telling, right? That the worst was already priced in. Who knows? But so far, I can only just play levels, and the narratives always follow. And this is what we have now. So I hope you find this useful, and let's see how the weekly close, which is the most important. Even though BTC it's above 81k, I said at the end of the week that even close above the 50 would be enough, would be bullish. So we still have some merging. And lastly, I want to take a quick look at the 200 MAs on the 4 hour on the daily, right? We had on the 4 hour a perfect rejection yesterday, which was expected, right? That the next retest to be a rejection, right? This is still a downtrend, but at some point, this downtrend makes a high low and turns around if it's still in a bullish higher time frame trend, right? So we'd like to see a higher low here. Perhaps here would be good, but we'll see. This rejected was expected, and on the daily, it still hasn't retested it yet, right? I want to make a higher low first. So things are not looking that bad. It reminds me a lot to this area, right? Let's see if it can happen faster or if it can just happen. We reclaim, we climb back, and we start fighting our way to reclaiming the 98, 88, 90k. We'll see. So I will keep you updated when I find something relevant, perhaps at the end of the week or early next week. Bye. Okay, bye.